Hello everybody and welcome back to Red Eagle Politics. Make sure you guys like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So, currently, Donald Trump has a lead nationally in the head-to-head polling between him and Joe Biden. The election's going to be in less than 5 months. And on top of that, he also leads every single possible swing state that you could have a lead in. And even polls in places like Virginia are becoming competitive. And this is something that I think even a lot of Republicans did not anticipate to be the case, not even that long ago. So definitely it's not looking too good for Joe Biden, and it is looking relatively good for Donald Trump as things stand right now. Now, a lot can change, and this election is not quite a done deal. We've covered extensively the Sun Belt states and why it looks really good for Trump there. You talk about states like Georgia, Joe Biden not really standing much of a chance. His team basically downgrading the priorities of Georgia, of Nevada, a state Republicans have not won since 2004 at the presidential level. But Donald Trump, with over a 5% lead, goes to Nevada, talks about getting rid of taxes on tips. That's going to definitely probably, if anything, increases lead there. And then you have the state of North Carolina. Donald Trump leads by 5.3 percentage points in North Carolina. This was the closest state that he pulled off in 2020. Doesn't really seem as if the national environment's looking too good for Biden, especially compared to back then. And he's really not going to stand very much of a chance in those states. So, you look at the map from 2020. Already you can flip Georgia. You can flip Arizona. You can flip Nevada. Arizona is still a state that I think a lot of people are still dooming about. They have a I'll believe it when I see it type of mentality. I can't exactly blame them for that. But when you look at this, Republicans are at 268 electoral votes. So even if Republicans win all those states, Biden does still have a path to victory. The path to victory that he has is going to be through the Rust Belt states, the 3 states that Trump essentially flipped out of nowhere back in 2016. Everybody thought that he would have a chance at least at North Carolina, Florida, Arizona, Georgia. Those states people thought were, in play. They thought Trump would flip Ohio and Iowa unless they were some of the more hackish wishcasters, and there were a few of those for sure. But Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, very few people thought Trump would pull off those states. I did. I thought just because of the white working class population, he's going to outperform expectations in Ohio and Iowa. That's going to carry over to the Rust Belt. I didn't think he'd win Michigan at the time. I thought he'd win Wisconsin. I thought Michigan would be close, and I thought he'd win Pennsylvania. He ended up winning all 3. He almost ended up winning Minnesota and New Hampshire as well. But either way you look at this, this is definitely a map that is kind of like not looking too good for Biden, because the walls are essentially closing in on this guy, and he has to basically play defense because a lot of his resources now have to just go to defending the key states. Biden is going to try in Arizona, it seems, but Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, that's his strategy. He's banking on these states being very close to each other in terms of their culture, demography, industry, and hoping that it's going to play off if that's his strategy. Just defend states that he barely allegedly won in the 2020 cycle. And you talk about the margins being so narrow in these places anyways. You look at Michigan, that was Biden's state where he probably ended up benefiting the most from higher black turnout. We're probably not going to see that level again. But on top of that, you have COVID, you have plenty of other things that were going on at the time. You're not going to see turnout that high, but still, the industry, the auto industry since then kind of turning a little bit on Biden. And then you have the whole Gaza thing, which is a little bit overstated, but the underrated effects of it are not necessarily the Muslim vote in Dearborn, but also younger voters as well, and the enthusiasm that they will have for Biden. Will it be where it was last time? No, and polls show Trump even gaining a lot of these younger voters. So Michigan, that was the state that probably was looking to be the most out of reach for Donald Trump. In terms of just conventional wisdom, the GOP was essentially gutted, the state GOP, and they've changed leadership. But, you look at the polls, or you saw the polls and what was going on, Michigan was actually Trump's best state of the three. He was up in the polls in January by 5 points. I said it would not hold. I didn't think he would win the state by that much. If he wins it, he probably wins it by less than a couple points, at most. And still, the polls have it close. They've tightened since then, but Donald Trump really hasn't lost a ridiculous amount of ground, it seems, either way, and he's polling at 47%. He never polled that high in either 2016 in Michigan or 2020 in Michigan. 2016, when he last won the state, he was at 43.4. He ended up winning. The polls underestimated him. They could be doing the same thing again, for the record. We'll have to see what happens, but still, that's the state. Biden needs to win all three of these states to win the election. Trump needs to win one of those states, or he could go out there and have a freak situation, flip Virginia, he won. Flip Maine at large, he won. Flip New Hampshire, it doesn't really seem likely at this point, but he'd win. Or if he flipped Nebraska's 2nd district, which maybe there is a rebound there, well, Trump likely gets to, be able to win in the House with 269. So either way you look at it, Donald Trump is in a very good position regardless. He's going on offense, and he just needs to win one electoral vote to win in the House. That's what it would take. You're looking at this, and it's looking to be like a very favorable map for Donald Trump. It really is. Michigan, again, you talk about this state, Macomb County, you talk about maximizing your output where you possibly can. It seems like Donald Trump, he brings out this base in Michigan that basically nobody else can bring out. And he's, targeting these workers. He's making sure he can get the union workers out to vote. Biden's struggling with Muslims. He's struggling with energizing black voters as well. That's a recipe for disaster in a county like Wayne. That gave Biden about 333,000 votes over Trump. He's still going to win Wayne by a decent amount, but that margin could be severely cut down, and that could really, be an impediment on his odds in the state. And it's not like you can just expect, Oakland County is going to continue to zoom left, or Kent County is going to continue to zoom left in this environment. Maybe it does move left, but is it going to zoom left off a cliff like we saw in 2020? Probably not. I mean, trending left maybe, but you could even see, I think Oakland probably rebounds, moves to the right too. And you'll see a lot of these other places do the same. But you look at Wisconsin. This is a state where Donald Trump, it's, very much prime real estate for Republicans. Very high white working class population. The Milwaukee suburbs, even if you want to say they've moved left, it's like, okay, well, they have, but Republicans, demographically speaking, have a very high floor in them. I think Waukesha County, Trump probably gets, close to 60% there. He could even improve in Washington County. Probably slips a little bit in Ozaukee, but it's the smallest of the three. And you also have Racine, Kenosha. Republicans have been doing very well in those counties lately. And you have other metro areas like Green Bay, the Fox Cities. You have the Driftless area where Republicans are going to seek to really kind of, run up the score. And there's a lot of room for them to go out there and do so. And Donald Trump, he needs to make sure he's, hitting everywhere he needs to hit in Wisconsin. I believe he could. Seems like Biden, just the narrow, room for error, seems like he's not going to be able to, cross the finish line in the state as easily as he was, able to compete in the 2020 race. And Pennsylvania is another one, because you talk about where the shift was for Biden. East Pennsylvania, where you had a lot of people that probably fell for the Scranton Joe facade, and he was deemed and dubbed as Pennsylvania's 3rd senator. Well, does that exactly work in the here and now? When you have a record of 4 years, you can't just be Basement Joe, and people remember the old days. People see what you're doing to the country on full display. Trump's making a play for Pennsylvania. And we talk about the polls in Wisconsin. They're looking good for Trump, because the fact that he's up at all is good, because they have underestimated him by an average of 6 points both times. Not going to say that it's definitive, but the reason why Trump's not up by like 1 to 2 is because of that Quinnipiac outlier that, regardless of what happens, is not going to age well. But you look at the state of Pennsylvania. This state, Donald Trump leading the polls by 2.3 percentage points. This went from the weakest of the three to the strongest of the three. And again, you have a higher Hispanic population in Pennsylvania than you do in the other states because of Philadelphia. You have a very strong Republican base in the rural areas, and they are, in fact, moving to the right. And it seems like registrations are moving to the right. The party turnout gap in the primary plummeted from 2020. And you just don't see the same Biden enthusiasm, but also Donald Trump, he's able to go out there, get his base enthusiasm, adding support across the board in Pennsylvania. Will that be enough to get him across the finish line? Well, Biden, very narrow margin for error. Seems like he's definitely already exhausted that and then some. Really comes down to the turnout, and it seems like the whole automatic voter registration thing backfired and Republicans surged because of it. But the real problem here is, do these people turn out to vote? And that's really what dictates it. So like I said, this is not a already game over. It's nice that we're even talking about states like Virginia, Minnesota. But these three states in the Rust Belt, that is what dictates this election. Make no mistake about it. That's why you can't abandon these states. We got to go to Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, maybe even North Carolina, shore it up, maybe try to kill two birds with one stone with the whole Virginia thing. But the Rust Belt 3, these definitely need to be the main focus. And Biden's really struggling. Nate Silver, of all people, wrote an article about how, Biden is going after the Rust Belt 3, and he wrote an article about how 270 is a dangerous number for him because it seems like he's ceding a lot of ground. He seems like he is putting resources into Arizona, not so much, Georgia or Nevada. And he was initially looking to be putting resources into North Carolina, Texas, and Florida. Yeah, that's not going to happen. But he's going to mainly try to play defense and box Trump out of 270. Is that going to work? Nate Silver wrote an article about it on his Substack saying it's a dangerous strategy, and in part because relying on the narrow map poses some problems because these three states are similar, but they're different. Michigan has a substantial Arab population, which, again, he's right to say the effects of Gaza are overstated. There's not that many Muslims, but still, just the fact that you have any defections, it definitely is a piece to the puzzle. Anybody who defects from Biden to Trump is 2 votes Trump nets. You talk about the margin that Trump needs to net. If you look at Michigan, he needs to net about 100, and it seems like roughly 155,000. So one switch to Trump basically nets 2. One, I stay home or vote third party, nets Trump 1. So definitely you could make a case where that would net Trump around 50,000 or so of the margin he needs. And there's many other factors like lower black turnout in Detroit possibly that could affect the race as a whole, and it would not affect it in Biden's favor. So there's plenty of factors here, and also younger white voters also tend to be the type to oppose Biden over the whole Gaza thing too. I mean, he didn't do well in Ann Arbor. There's a lot fewer Muslims in Washtenaw County than there are in Wayne. Same thing with some of these other places in terms of the primary with the whole uncommitted vote. And you look at this, Wisconsin is the most rural of the trio. So it's like not really like the states are all uniform. There's a lot of rural whites in Wisconsin, and the populations do add up. I mean, a county like Walworth County, fairly rural, but netted Trump 11,000 votes over Biden, for example. And there's plenty of counties like this across the state. It definitely adds up. Democrats, they have to rely on Milwaukee and they have to rely on Dane County because without those 2 counties, they really don't have anything in terms of like their vote sinks and where they can add votes. So again, black turnout in Milwaukee probably does slip a little bit. Could youth turnout in Dane County negatively impact Biden as well? That's a whole nother question. I think the answer is probably it could. I don't know to what extent. It's probably still going to be a close state. But Wisconsin, this is a place where, Trump probably has the edge. So Biden having to defend Wisconsin in and of itself alongside these other states, it's like if Trump really goes out there and the polls are wrong a little bit again in favor in terms of the polls, if they overestimate Biden, then Biden's probably cooked in Wisconsin. He doesn't really have much of a path. And Pennsylvania as well, it's a little different. It's more northeastern, and Trump is definitely trying to go to Scranton. He's been to the Allentown area, trying to get northeastern Pennsylvania. The New Jersey rally was also largely about the Philadelphia area. He got a lot of positive press in the Philly suburbs. just because of that alone. And yeah, you can't neglect Pittsburgh, where even suburban Pittsburgh, Republicans have a lot of big counties that really will give them a lot of help, and you can't neglect that either. But still, I mean, these places are very similar in some ways, but also very different, because Democrats are struggling in New York and New Jersey. And yeah, northeastern Pennsylvania, that is in a way synonymous with those places more so than, Madison, Wisconsin, for example, or many places even in Michigan. So you look at that, and it's also like, yeah, faithless elector could doom things for sure. I don't think Trump should be too complacent with 270 either, for the record, even though if there's a faithless elector that's not like a, I voted for, I guess you would say, somebody besides Donald Trump but not Biden, it's not going to impact things, too much, because they'll still win in the House with 269. But still, it also makes sure that Biden has to go out there, defend Virginia. New Hampshire, who knows what's going to happen there? Polling's been all over the place in Maine, all over the place in New Hampshire, and we don't know what could happen in New Mexico. If you're really struggling in Nevada with Hispanics, yeah, maybe there is some carryover. I personally wouldn't bank on New Mexico being close, but maybe he will have to defend it. And that would be absolutely huge, because it just takes resources away from states that he definitely needs. And again, you talk about Maine's 2nd district, Biden has to make up for it by winning Nebraska's 2nd, as it's mentioned here. And still, the margin of victory does technically matter for political capital. That goes for both sides, though. We'll cross that bridge when we get there, but still, 312 to 226. That's the most likely course of action right now. But Biden's putting resources into Virginia. Virginia's closer than Arizona, Nevada, and Georgia, and North Carolina, and Florida. And also Pennsylvania right now. It's closer than Pennsylvania is for Trump, for Biden. It's astounding to me what's happening right now in our political climate. But you talk about the Rust Belt. That is where the election is won, and that's where the focus should go for Donald Trump as well. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Like this video down below, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Red Eagle, out.